Right, I've got the swing arm fitted back to the bike. I still need to tighten the pivot bolt up. It's sort of hand tight, finger tight. I'll get that torqued up in a minute, but it's not, tightening it up isn't going to make any difference to the positioning of it. The shocks are bolted back in, and that is as low as it will go. Obviously when you get the wheel back in and everything and it's on the floor, the actual swing arm will actually lift slightly. But what I'm trying to show you here is that I've got clearance between, not a lot, but I've got clearance, so it won't catch the exhaust, which is a good thing. I've undone the old caliper now, ready for putting the performance machine caliper on when I get the wheel back in. I've polished my spacers up, just a quick sort of polish up. There's no, I mean, normally I'd hit these with like wet and dry first, sort of get them so that they're flat as I can, and then polish them with the buffing machine. And the spacer, the disc spacers polished up so that it sort of matches the hub a bit. So I'm going to tighten this, torque this up, the fitting, sorry, the pivot bolt, and then I'm going to put the back wheel, put the new disc on the back wheel, and then start putting the back wheel back in. Once I've got to that point, I'll come back again and show you how it's going and how it's looking more than anything else. But so far I've no issues, it's fitting well, got clearance as I say on the exhaust. I knew it was going to be tight, but I've got the clearance, so that's all that matters. Right, that's it for now, come back later. Right, we've got the back wheel fitted, obviously. The new rear performance machine caliper's on and bled up, and it works perfect. I'll try and spin it up without blocking your view. It just, very little movement on the pedal and it just locks it. The pad's hardly moving at all, which leads me on to an interesting thing. My front caliper, as you know, the performance machine one, couldn't get to work properly, and I heard a thing on read a thing on one of the forums about the seals in the caliper being like not 100%, you know, just not right. Anyways, I was on the phone to my mate had rang us, and I was just cracking away in general and telling him what I've been doing with this, and just mentioned what the crack was with the front caliper to him. Now I'd had to take the performance machine one off and put the standard one back on in its place, and I told him what it was doing, and he said that he'd had a very similar thing with him with a performance machine caliper on one of his bikes. And I just says like, oh, did you just send it away and get it repaired? And he says no. He says you know when you rebuild a caliper, you get the caliper kit, you get, depending on what kit you buy, you'll get pistons, seals, and like you get a bit of what they call caliper grease, or you just get seals and some caliper grease. He inspected his caliper that was playing up, and he says it was almost as if it's been put together with no grease, like they haven't lubed the pistons. He says, so it's like, he says, you imagine a dry steel piston on a dry rubber. He says there's no way it's going to fucking slide like they're meant to. So he said to me, he says, just try, he says, because he knows I've rebuilt calipers before, he says, you know how you pop your pistons out with air before you split the two halves? He says, just do that, put a little bit of rod in the middle, which I do anyways when I do that. He says, pop your pistons so far out, he says, and then put some grease on them, like caliper grease, which I've got caliper grease. He says, and then push them out, like push them all the way back into the caliper, and he says, then pop them again with the air. He says, and just do that a couple of times. Anyways, I did that, And before I fitted this caliper, I actually connected the front caliper to the rear brake line, bled it up, used not this disc but used a disc in between, just to obviously as if it was on the bike, and bled it up, and you know it works fucking perfect now. So I've got to take the front wheel off anyways to put the matching disc on the, because I got two of these if you remember. So I'm going to put the performance machine caliper back on the front and bleed that up, because it seems to be sorted now. So that'll be my performance machine front and rear then. So quite happy. But this is absolutely spot on so far. Obviously I've got to test ride it, but as you know, all the measurements were correct. It was all in line, etc, etc. I can't foresee any issues. I know that it won't break. The bar that I've used, plenty thick enough. I've seen swing arms made with thinner bits of bar than what I've used on there. And I know that the weld's fine. So there'll be no issues with the swing arm. It's more the braking side of things. Well, the caliper's brand new and it's worked perfect right out of the box sort of thing. So really there shouldn't be any issues with the braking this time. And beforehand, as I said earlier in another video, before the back brake fucked up, the bike was performing brilliantly. And as I don't mean it was like a fucking race bike, it was basically, it just ran so smooth, handles really well considering, you know, it's got a big fat wheel in it. It handles absolutely spot on, so I was dead pleased with the bike. So yeah, for now that's where I'm at. I just thought I'd give you an update and tell you the crack with what he'd said about what would happen with the front caliper, what my mate had told me to do, and it seems to have done the trick. The caliper, as I say, when I bled it up on here, the caliper seemed to be working properly, as in when the pistons came out and squeezed against the disc, instead of rolling all the way back in like they were doing, they actually just let off just ever so slightly and you could move the disc. So just like that one, it's sort of working like that one is now. So hard to understand, because when I first put it on, it seemed to work, but it braked at the bottom of my drive, it braked at the bottom of the road, and then halfway along the private road I was on, that's when it packed in working. So God knows, but it seems to be fine now. So, but yeah, just an update. Back end's completely back together now. Everything's torqued up. The disc bolts are Loctited in. The caliper's all fastened properly in place, as in on the bracket, the swing arm bracket. It's the little screw on the bottom of the caliper bracket that's up tight and locked in. So it's looking good. Only thing I've got to do, for some reason this brake line won't reach the swing arm, and I don't mean because I've made it wider, it just, whether it's higher up or in a different place I don't know, but it just doesn't seem to go all the way down onto the swing arm. So the plastic guard that's on the inside, I'm just going to drill a hole in that big enough for a cable tie, and I'm just going to cable tie the brake line to that temporarily. Well, I say temporarily, it's one of them temporarily forever jobs. And also that the way I've modified the swing arm at the bottom, the plastic guard that goes in, like the splash guard, I had to cut the corner off just about, honestly it must have been like 15mm in width by about that high, maybe, in fact probably about 15mm square, just off the bottom corner, so it would clear that bit of bar that's welded in there. So yeah, everything's going well at the minute, so touch wood it'll stay that way. But yeah, I'll keep you informed as I get going, and hopefully everything will be okay. Right, catch you later. Right, last update for now. The I've had the bike out. I've done what have I done? Done 110 mile. Front brake works, but it's still not 100%. It stops, but it's definitely not normal performance machine sort of standards. So I'm still going to be getting a new seal kit for it, but it's working a lot better than it was to start with. But the rear brake, it's just phenomenal. It is performance machine standard and it's just unreal. You wouldn't think that changing a 4-pot caliper for another 4-pot caliper would make that much difference, but they are, when they're done right, they're absolutely brilliant. As I say, I've used performance machine on lots of bikes in the past and they are absolutely superb brakes. Handles well still. There hasn't been any issues with like flexing or out like that, which to be truthful I wasn't expecting any. I mean, I've only made it an inch wider. It's not as if it's gone stupid like 3 inch wider. But no, it's gone well. The brakes are good, back brake's phenomenal, and as I say, the front brake, it works and it stops you, but I'm gonna get a seal kit and rebuild it just to make it better. If I can get the front one performing like the back, I'll be well happy. But yeah, apart from that, it's now done and dusted and running like a treat. So, as I say, as I've already said, should I say, I'm gonna get a seal kit for the front caliper, and when that arrives, I'll do a video on rebuilding the front caliper. But apart from that, everything else is absolutely spot on. But yeah, that's it for now. There'll no doubt be something else crop up and that I'll probably change or do something different, but for now it's pretty much as it is. So, right, until next time, stay safe, catch you later.